Welcome to our commercial real estate series, Behind the Building, giving the audience a behind the scenes look at different aspects of commercial real estate, featuring industry professionals and leaders who we work with every day to make it all happen. With me today is Kevin Szostak, Director of Economic Development Projects, whose mission is to enhance the welfare of business and to promote and stimulate economic vitality in the Alamance County area for the benefit of their investor members and the community. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure. So let's just dive into the existing thriving industry that you have in Alamance County and how you engage with them and you support these companies. So, what are some of the common pain points you hear from businesses in Alamance County, and how do you structure your programs at the chamber in order to address those?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Industry across Alamance County is diverse, and when I use the term industry, I'm generally referring to our manufacturers, distributors, and affiliated businesses that are supporting those larger businesses in the community. Although they're not always large, sometimes they are small in nature, small in staff, but when we're looking at the businesses that are in Alamance County, a lot of times we see pinch points around the workforce services and the need to have qualified talent here in the community that are accessible for them as potential employees. One of the things we do with our programming is through the Education and Workforce Council and things like our Alamance Industrial Alliance, we're bringing those industry partners to the table, having conversations around these initiatives that are needed. One of the things through the Workforce Council this year, we focused on barriers to the workforce. So items that, as potential employees, they see as obstacles to being fully employed, whether it's access to resources for resume building and applications, if it's transportation needs, if there are mental or physical disabilities that those potential employees have, what are the resources both for employers and for those individuals to access? And then other things like second chance employment, where the background of that individual might prohibit gainful employment. So, what are we doing to encourage companies to see these as um, great quality members of their future team, and how we can minimize those obstacles so that they can all be employed and those businesses can be successful? Some of the other pieces are advocacy. Here at the Chamber, we focus on advocacy at a national and a state level, as well as everything local. But we're paying attention to those business needs, hearing what they have, and then working to go to DC and go to Raleigh to speak to those issues directly.
Awesome. So many hats that you all wear.
We certainly do. It's a big team. I'm happy to be a part of a lean, mean chamber machine, but we're continuing to grow and continuing to see success in Alamance County.
Yeah. So it always amazes me the different types of companies that are just in our backyard and all the cool things that they're doing. You support a lot of manufacturers, distributors. Tell me a couple of standout examples of manufacturers or production, things that are being made in Alamance that you're especially proud of, and what
Yeah.
lessons could be shared with other commercial real estate stakeholders, brokers, property owners, investors who are, and business owners who are looking to do business and be a part of the Alamance ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, North Carolina is the number one state for business, and we hope Alamance is the number one county for business. We've got, as you said, we have a wide variety of different manufacturers, and historically, our community has been heavy in the textile industries, but we continue to see innovation in textiles. Back in 2023, Fjord Inc. Was awarded the Coolest Thing Made in NC Award by the State Chamber of Commerce. They make an object called the static rope edge protection. So think for climbers, window washers, rescue operations, naval operations. So all of those ropes and lines that are braiding on something, they're producing those for global needs here in Burlington. So they're a highly abrasive resistant material and actually have the world's or North America's largest sewing machine. So it's just a very large format sewing machine, but enables them to put all of those materials and layers together and do it at speed. Um, they're one of those small manufacturers. They are a homegrown operation. and they have a modest manufacturing size compared to some other global manufacturers, but they're definitely a top spot for cool things. In addition to them, Lotus Bakeries is one of our homegrown, or not homegrown, but we're happy to have them here in Alamance County. Lotus is a Belgian company most known for their Biscoff cookies. So if you have flown domestically on American or Delta in the past decade, you have eaten a Biscoff cookie made in North Carolina and made in Alamance County.
Yeah, that is super cool. I love
Mhm.
that. I've seen that a lot on flights
Yeah.
and going by it. It's like, hey kids, look what's made here.
It's made here. Yeah, my wife always says, "Stop, stop. They don't. It doesn't matter." But it's so exciting because it's one of those objects that you interact with on a frequent basis, and if you don't turn it over and see where it's made, you're not really paying attention. It's just you go through that procedure. But you also asked about property owners and real estate partners. I think for existing industries, they're always looking for opportunities to grow and to continue to innovate. And so, if there are specific needs for specific building types or opportunities to grow that can support those existing industries, those are those conversations we want to engage with real estate partners and developers so that we can be well prepared for that next phase of one of those existing industries.
Right. So, you spoke a little bit about earlier the workforce council that you all have created, and that deals with workforce and talent alignment. So, how closely would you say that the jobs that are available in Alamance County can be met, and that we actually have folks in the pipeline, that we have those training programs that will feed up into these jobs? Are there gaps? Tell us more about your insight there.
I think there's always going to be gaps within the workforce pipeline, and we're doing our best in Alamance to fill those and to find those needs of the industries. One of the things we do at the Chamber is to provide a closer alignment of our education partners and those that are in the workforce ecosystem directly with our employers at all scales. And so things like our Education and Workforce Council, we're bringing those businesses to the table and allowing them to share what are some of the needs that are not being met, and then talking to our educators on the other side and saying, how can we work to fit these needs in a way that aligns with your education system?
Like Alamance Community College?
Yep, Alamance Community College, Elon University, and then the North Carolina Community College system across the state, as well as our university system and private universities across the state. We work to have regional partnerships to ensure that the access to those resources can be had from Alamance County as far away as Wake Forest and North Carolina State University. Employers are willing to search for qualified employees, even if they're not immediately in their back door. One of the resources that we have in Alamance County is our youth apprenticeship program, Apprentice Alamance. Originally in 2015, it was created as the Career Accelerator Program, and we underwent a rebrand last summer just to more closely align with the message and the impact that that program offers, but also to have additional advertising for our educators, our employers, and our students and their families. The youth apprenticeship program is not uncommon throughout the state, but I think we're unique in the opportunities that we provide because it's a chance for high school students to have gainful employment, career advancement, and graduate with an associate's degree from Alamance Community College at no cost to them. So it's a great partnership between our education partners at the Alamance Burlington School System, Community College, and then about a dozen employers that we currently have. Those students are able to work on the job, have mentorship training and support. And so a lot of companies see that as an opportunity to grow their company culture in a younger generation, especially as we see long-term workers looking for retirement and just different changes in those individuals' needs. And so it's a great chance for companies to keep that culture in place, train specifically to what they're doing, and then again for the younger generation to have gainful employment and career advancement opportunities.
Do those employers foot the bill for the education?
Yeah, so the great thing with youth apprenticeships is that there is a tuition waiver for high school students as they are entering into that program. It's not always the case for adult apprentices that are starting after 18 or after high school, but with Apprentice Alamance, students and employers do not have the cost. It's something that's provided at the state level. It is an application base, and so it's not always affirmed, but almost always is approved. And then additional costs like uniforms, books, and other resources that students might need for work and for school. Our consortium works to ensure that those students don't have that cost, and those employers are the ones that are supporting those expenses.
That's great. And that does help bring up the next generation of your talent. Very,
Mhm.
very important. So let's talk about the sites that you need to actually um, have these businesses located at. So, site selection for expansions or even new users. How do you see the site and building readiness, which includes the infrastructure, having the proper utilities, zoning? How does that interplay in Alamance, and what do you see working well? Where do you see room for improvement?
I think site selection is definitely a process of elimination rather than selection. When especially new industries and foreign investment are looking into the community, they're looking at a wide area, multiple states, multiple counties within North Carolina. And so we like to throw our hat in the ring as an opportunity for their next phase of business and their growth. We see focusing on infrastructure as a key priority for that. It's something that we can do today that allows us to be more proactive and successful in the future. Um, Elements, especially water and wastewater, are probably the longest lead times, but something that pays the most dividends at the end. Communities like the city of Mebane have worked to receive federal and state level funding for a water tower and wastewater expansion. And then others like Burlington have historically had strong water supplies, as I mentioned, with textile industries. And so as those businesses wane, there's opportunities for new businesses to come in. And so you have really robust infrastructure systems that allows businesses coming in these days to say, hey, I need 100,000 gallons or I need 1 million gallons of water a day, right? So these are numbers that are they're hard for us to imagine as regular consumers. Think I'm trying not to use 10 gallons for a shower. I'm trying to get out of there quick. But businesses need that and they see the opportunity to use that. And so that investment today, especially if there's opportunities for public dollars or public matching dollars, really provides for those future opportunities. I think other things that are unique, like rail access, is a piece of infrastructure that we often overlook. The rail system in North Carolina connects directly to the ports, both the inland port in Charlotte and Morehead City and Wilmington on the coast, as well as our neighboring ports in Virginia and South Carolina. And so having access to rail is a really critical piece of infrastructure. City of Mebane, Alamance County, our state legislatures, and private sector partners came together to create the North Carolina Industrial Center transload facility. We're working on a shorter name, but it's a descriptive name for it, and it's an opportunity for those businesses who don't have sites and buildings next to a rail line to be able to have that last mile transfer within their community. That's a really critical and key piece of being robust in infrastructure development. And not every community is going to have that opportunity, but that is something that takes a decade or more to actually come to fruition and be completed.
What an opportunity. And you're definitely going to need an acronym for that.
Yeah, we're going to work on that one.
So you've talked about some of the larger companies, mid to larger. You've got small businesses and small entrepreneurs that you support. Um, when you're supporting those, how do you see the real estate community, owners, landlords, brokers? How do we partner effectively to also support those smaller users? What do we need to be aware of in order to help those businesses grow and succeed?
I think with entrepreneurs and especially with foreign investment, that oftentimes the state perceives as entrepreneurial in nature because they don't have existing operations here in the U.S. Flexibility is probably the key word for that. Oftentimes, these are individuals that are operating in a new space from a building and real estate perspective that they've never been in before, or if it's coming from a different country, operating in the U.S. is just not in their parlance. And so flexibility both in communication, but also the reactiveness to those needs. So that might be a short turnaround for some of those domestic entrepreneurs. And if you're not able to respond to them soon enough, they'll go to the next opportunity. Same with those foreign investors that if my office is working with your office to get information about a smaller building that's suitable, and you don't get back for over a week, you're out of the game, right? That conversation's gone. It's on the next page. So I think landlords, real estate brokers, and those partners just have to remain flexible and ready for that. We all have our priorities, and oftentimes when these projects come through, that's you drop everything and you start working on that. But being ready for those conversations and being able to respond in a quick manner is often going to put you at the front of the table. I'd also say a common trend that we've seen, especially with the smaller spaces, is perhaps a willingness to sell. That's a key piece for some of these businesses that they want to have that ownership and that investment. They don't necessarily want a landlord, and that's going to differ between industries and industry type. But sometimes I've seen that that's a sticking point for building owners and recognizing that that's an investment for them, but it might take them out of the running for the further conversation.
Right. And the fact of the matter is we just don't have a lot of product available for sale. The
Right.
trades just haven't happened, and so I imagine that some companies just have to settle and realign and reassess that, okay, leasing a property is going to be our business model now, and
Right.
we've got to be okay with it and just
And I think
adjust
that's
that
our role, and
mindset.
the state's role is help communicate. Just because you want this doesn't mean you're going to get it, but at the same time, our opportunity to connect with our local partners and communicate that back, say, here's some of the trends that we're seeing, and just be a little more flexible, maybe a little more willing to have those conversations.
Hmm.
I'll say too, on those smaller buildings, and when I mean small, I'm talking 50,000 or less. We don't have a lot of that within Alamance County, and there's always opportunities to connect with local developers and local landowners. Often say just because you have land doesn't mean you have a site. Just because you have site doesn't mean you have product. And so, right, we talk about that infrastructure development and that long lead time to be prepared for it. But if you've got a 15,000 square foot building, decent height, good utilities, we can get it filled. There's a need for that throughout the state, but especially in our area. And so it's all about, again, being prepared, working in that direction, perhaps finding resources and funds that can help front early capital costs right before someone's actually able to move in and be a paying tenant, but working in that direction.
Hmm. Makes sense. So, some of your other programs you mentioned earlier, your Industrial Alliance. Tell us a little bit about that peer network program that you have available to your industrial business owners.
Yeah, one of the things I was excited about in starting this role was working on an existing industry program of work. That's something that our chamber did not explicitly have before, right? There's always communication with the existing businesses at a larger scale, the industries. Um, those businesses are unique as opposed to other chamber investors and other more commercial and service-oriented businesses because it's hard for them to get out of their space, right? Your background looking at a warehouse, you're focused on making your widget and getting it out the door because you've got more coming in and business is booming in that sense. And so with the Alamance Industrial Alliance, we wanted to create a space for peers to communicate with one another, work towards common needs and common issues, and then just have a chance to connect so that as an ecosystem, and to work myself out of a job, that these businesses know who they can talk to and are able to do that innately because that's who their community is these peer manufacturers, peer distributors that have a common goal and common need. I think things like the apprenticeship program we have in our community are a good example of how that community is able to work together for a greater benefit. With the apprenticeship, those partners are not able to poach those workers from each other. They stay within those businesses. That may not always be the case across the board, but having those alliances and those connections is a great chance to say, I'm having hiring issues within this specific area. I'm having an advocacy need for this environmental concern. I'm not sure where the best place is to market when I'm looking for new suppliers or new product elements to help with distribution. So bringing those folks to the table is the first element, but that next piece is the conversation after the meeting. Right now, we hold quarterly meetings for the Industrial Alliance, and so it's a chance for those peers to have some lunch together, just have some community. We brought in partners like the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina to speak about foreign trade and domestic trade, and that's something that we're hoping to do again next year because that's a new area for businesses, especially growing and smaller local businesses. So always wanting to provide them with those resources, but also just having those businesses in the same room is a great chance to say, "Oh, I didn't know you made this here. Can you make this for me?" and do that. And those conversations have happened. We found that some of our manufacturers have connected with others so that they're now providing that product or they're now making that housing for your assembly in-house in the same county and cutting down on those costs. And again, just building that network from within.
I think it's amazing that you're bringing the education piece, you're bringing fellowship, you're encouraging other businesses to do business with each other when possible and when it makes sense. And I think that's just an amazing member benefit, or in your case, an investor benefit.
We're happy when we host those meetings. We actually host them at those industries, and so they are opening their doors to their neighbors. We often encourage those hosts to provide a tour at the end of the meeting, and so it's a chance to peek behind the curtain. But it's just again great to see, here's a legacy industry that's been in our community for 100 years, hosting a business that's been around for 10. What can I learn both on both sides, right? How can I learn from the innovation of the younger company and the success of the older company, and how can we each benefit from that? And so it's just a great time to get together.
hmm So, Kevin, as we round out this episode, I want to hear more about the vision for growth and how you and your team members from the Alamance Chamber want to differentiate yourselves as a group and supporting new and expansion projects. So, what do you see in the next 3 to 5 years? What's the vision?
Alamance County is at a really unique place. We are both physically at the intersection of two rapidly growing regions, but also emotionally in there, right? Still dealing with who are we as a community? What do we want from an industrial base, right? What are the types of industries and types of employers do we want to see? How do we want to recruit and be a part of that? And then what's our larger place within the state and within the country in that regard? One thing we're very excited, we're starting is two strategic plans. One is for our organization. So internally, how can we operate and be more effective for the businesses within our community? And what can we do to really be the best version of ourselves as we're reaching out to those businesses of all shapes and sizes? The second piece is that we're leading an economic development strategic plan for the county. That's through the Economic Development Foundation for Alamance County that's housed under our organization, and really going to be working towards that vision. So that 5 and even 10-year vision of who is Alamance County, how are we leading that? And again, when we're talking economic development, it's not just new industries, it's how are we supporting those existing industries to be innovative and transform for that next generation. What are we doing from housing and urban development, suburban development? How are we making housing affordable? Talking about things like childcare, and access and affordability of childcare. How do we as a business community fit into that conversation? And then ultimately, what are we doing for the people that live here, right? That's all we're doing is for individuals. We're just doing it through that business lens. So For me personally, my priority is supporting those existing industries. It's always fun. It's a little sexy when you've got big projects and big numbers to throw around and to have those recruitment opportunities. But existing industries are where our workforce is. They are the ones who pay the taxes. They are the ones that we want to see successful in the long run. And so getting out of the office more. Often say I don't do my job well. If I'm sitting in the office all week, I've got to get out, need to be in those factories, meeting with those workforce partners, learn from the students what they want to do, learn from those educators what they're teaching for, and try to provide that convening space so we can be more effective in all of that work.
Great. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being a part of this Behind the Building interview episode. It seems like that you all are doing such great work in Alamance County. You've got a lot to be proud of.
Thank you,
So,
Emily. It's been a great pleasure to be here.
yeah. So I encourage the viewers to reach out to me as I want to be your resource for all things commercial real estate. I can help connect you with Kevin from the Alamance Chamber to be able to look at the opportunities and resources available to you and to help your business grow and reach its goals. Thank you for watching this episode, and be sure to keep an eye out for future Behind the Building episodes where we get to interview awesome industry professionals just like Kevin.